And back home, the month of August in South Africa is dedicated to women. South African women still face a myriad challenges such as gender-based violence, sexual harassment in the workplace, unemployment and unequal pay.
Watinti abafazi, watinti umbokodo translates, now you have struck the woman, you have struck a rock. In recent years, the phrase has been attributed to South African women's courage, their strength and force. Tired of the rhetoric, they are calling for action.
I believe that there isn't severe enough punishment or consequences to the males that are out there doing this. Again, our system is so overwhelmed. There are so many crimes happening that there's a blanket approach. So.
Remember the woman we lost here, the dreams of seeing the world that were crushed here. Her name was Janika. She was just 14. There was so much of the world she hadn't seen.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and thank you very much for joining me here again today. So I just wanted to start off by saying I'm so sorry I wasn't here last week. I came down with the flu and I just really wasn't feeling well, but I'm back and I'm on the road to recovery and I feel much better. But I hope you have all been doing well and that you're all keeping safe. You were definitely all in my thoughts and I really missed you guys quite a lot. But today we're going to talk about a case that was suggested to me again, so thank you for all your suggestions. They are really, really great. And with Women's Day that has just passed here in South Africa, we are talking about a young lady that even though she didn't have the opportunity to grow into the exceptionally bright and young lady that she was probably going to be, we are going to talk about a young teenage girl who was sadly taken way too soon and murdered in quite a brutal and horrific way. And in our country, there seems to be this boiling pot of violence that keeps escalating and escalating. And there are so many protests where our women, our men, and our children are saying that that's enough. We have had enough. But even though there may be many reasons as to why people murder in such brutal and horrific ways, they will never be a good enough reason as to why our people and our children are being murdered. So today we're going to talk about the incredibly disturbing, depressing, and horrific case of the young Janika Mallo. And with that being said, let's get into today's case.
Intended for mature audiences only.
Today we are heading to Chipini Street in an area called Hines Park in Philippi, which is in Cape Town, South Africa, where a young 14-year-old girl named Janika Mallo lived with her mother Janika Mallo and her grandmother Pauline Butler. Janika's dad was present in her life, but as far as I could read, he did live separately from them because he may have been working in a different province or different area in order to bring money home for the family. Janika attended Northwood Primary School in Mitchell's Plain, and Janine, Janika's mother, said that she worked incredibly hard in school and she had so many dreams of what she wanted to be when she was older. Janine said that Janika would talk about being an air hostess because of the abilities to travel, the opportunities, and to be able to see the world and explore. Janika wanted so much out of life and she just wanted to bring home the best, to make her family happy and to be able to let her family grow. Janika was very well liked by her friends, and her mom would often say that she was very attentive to her grandmother as well. Janika would do a lot of things around the house without having to be told, without a lot of fuss, and she enjoyed being able to help her family. But with Janika being in grade 7, so the last year of junior school before venturing into high school, there was this excitement and not knowing that was in the air, and her friends was looking so forward to the next year when she would then hopefully start high school and then begin this chapter of endless opportunities, because if she was doing very well in junior school, her mom and her family really believed that she would excel in high school and really be the woman and person that she wanted to grow up to be. So I'm not quite sure if Janika actually played soccer or if it was because of her friends. But either way, her school was busy holding a fundraiser for her soccer team or her school soccer team at the time. And Janika was then going to attend this fundraiser with her friends, and they were then going to make a day out of it. So like most teenagers or most children, they do need to ask their parents for permission before going out or venturing anywhere where their parents don't know where they are. But Janika then went to her mom, Janine, and asked if she could go to this fundraiser with her friends. But Janika's mom said point blank, she's not going. You are not going to this fundraiser. You are going to stay home. End of discussion. And it seems like Janika and Janine got into quite the altercation, and it's unclear what was said. But what Janine does recall from that night was the last words that she said to her daughter, and this is what she said, quote, "I smacked her in her face and told her she cannot go to the soccer club's event in Portland, and that was the last I saw her alive. The last thing I gave my child was a smack across the face. She was on her way home as far as I know when last I heard from her and her friends," end quote. So I feel really bad for Janine, Janika's mom, in this situation. It's not my place to say anything about how children are raised in different households and whether Janine did lay a hand on Janika or not. But I do feel bad for Janine in the sense that this was the last altercation that she had with her daughter. And I was also told by my mom when I was quite young, don't ever go to bed upset. Make sure your last goodbyes to people are always that you love them and that you're kind, because you never know. And we know of so many people who have had fights or who have had altercations like Janine and Janika, where sadly that's the last thing that they say to each other. So I really do sympathize with the mom and how hurt she must have felt after knowing what would lie ahead. Okay, so let's get into what happened that night. So Janika apparently decided to go against her mother's wishes of not going to the soccer fundraiser. So her and her friends did end up going, and then they decided to come home quite late at night. They all joined into one taxi. And then the friends all got dropped into one area, but because they all lived at different houses, the friends would then walk until one went off this way to their house, one went off that way, and so on. So it seems at some point that Janika was walking completely alone to get to her grandmother's house at the time. Then we skip forward to 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. Janika's grandmother, Pauline, gets up like normal. She then heads through the house. She opens the back door to let some air in. And when she opens the back door, she notices something a bit further out in the garden. So Janika's grandmother, Pauline, then starts walking out of the house. She gets closer and she is met with one of the worst sights that she has ever seen. And I think that a lot of people have ever seen. What Pauline saw was a mound-looking thing. She then goes closer and she notices that this is covered by a pink blanket. As she gets even closer, she notices that what she thought was just like a hump of something under this pink blanket was actually a young girl's body. And sadly, what Pauline lifted up was the bloody, beaten and bruised and dead body of Janika Mallo. Police were quickly called. Janika's parents were immediately on the scene, both her mom and her dad. And when police tried to talk to Janika's dad, they asked him, "Do you know anything? What is happening?" And it was said that Janika's dad was just sobbing uncontrollably. He couldn't get anything out. And like we said earlier, when police pulled back this pink blanket, there they found the young and dead body of 14-year-old Janika Mallo. And one of the first things the lead detective said at the site was that whoever did this had absolutely no concern for human life because of how brutally Janika was murdered. And he could not understand what type of person would even want to do this to another. Janika had been found lying on her back, so face up. Her dungarees were pulled down to her ankles, and her head was so badly beaten that parts of her brain were lying next to her as well. Police have still not confirmed whether Janika has been or not, but I personally do not see why a young girl's dungarees would be down to her ankles, and also the position that she was lying in, her legs were slightly apart as well. The police would keep confirming with the news agencies that this crime was incredibly brutal and inhumane, and I really agree. And recently I've been talking to friends and families about this topic, not specifically Janika's case, but the violence against women in South Africa at the moment, and also about other crimes in our country. And we know that violent crimes like this are not new. It's not something that we've never experienced before. And crimes that are this violent go against men and women and children. But in the news the other day, I'm watching quite closely the case of those 80 minors who are basically on trial for of around 6 to 8 women. And I think the women were shooting a music video or something like that when they were apparently attacked by these men. And it kind of got me thinking that you think that you're safe in a place where you want to be away from people because being away from people means that you're somewhat safe. However, clearly, if you go somewhere alone, there are always predators watching you. And it is a scary realization that acts like this can happen at any time, any of us here in South Africa, and of course all over the world. But this is just very real for a lot of us who are living and breathing in South Africa. But with Janika's case, she was a child. She was a teenager, barely even 14 years old. And sadly, the leads on this case are slim to none. And police then said that they were going to take Janika's body away because they now wanted to determine the cause of death of Janika, which you may think is quite futile knowing what her injuries were, especially to her head. And the reason that they took Janika's body away or wanted to examine her cause of death is because they believed that yes, Janika was beaten, but with what object was she beaten with? What was the leading up circumstances to her death? Did she die from the head beatings, or was there another cause of death? Because she also had bruising around her body, so they just wanted to confirm. And police also think that she was first beaten unconscious, then, which they still haven't confirmed, but that's the sequence of events that they believed happened. She was knocked unconscious, she was then, and then somehow this violence really escalated, and then they decided to beat her. And then she was either beaten with a brick or a rock, some kind of big object like that. Police also maybe think that Janika woke up in the middle of this altercation, and that's why the violence may have escalated, because she was now eye to eye with the apparent killer or killers. But it is apparent that this is some serious overkill. The community that Janika lived in really felt that they knew who did it, and they knew that there was gang activity in the area, and they believed that there was a group of boys, 3 in particular, who looked for trouble, and the community really believed that these boys were the culprits. Now, the police couldn't exactly go to the community and just arrest these 3 boys who were apparently believed to be the culprits, because police still needed some type of evidence. They couldn't just go in guns blazing and try and pull these boys in. And I say boys because, yes, they were also very young and believed to be under the age of 21. However, this is unconfirmed, and we do not know the names of any suspects in this case as of yet. But from the readings that I could see so far, apparently 2 people have been arrested, but none have been charged for the murder of Janika Mallo. But I could be wrong, so if anyone else knows of any arrests, please let me know down below. But I do find that this case has so many unanswered questions. For example, Janika was going home. She seemed to be alone at the time. So did the culprits follow her, and then did they and murder her in her grandmother's back garden? Think that that type of brutality would have warranted some noise, some people may have looked out, or was she attacked somewhere else and then placed there because they knew who Janika was, who her family was, and maybe had some vendetta against the grandmother, which might not be plausible. Maybe they just knew who Janika's grandmother was and wanted to place her back because they felt some kind of guilt. So I think that she may have been attacked and murdered in her grandmother's back garden. And if she was she already home by the time that she was attacked? Or did she lead some people into the back garden to maybe converse more? We don't have any answers, and there's so many answers up in the air. But I do just find the circumstances around her murder very concerning, and it seems like there's missing pieces here that we haven't heard about yet. But we really wish that all the justice will be served for Janika Mallo and her family. And we really hope that police can serve justice in this case and put those guilty behind bars. But let me know what you think of this case down below. I hope you're all staying safe, staying healthy. Thank you for all your kind comments, and thank you for being so supportive. I will see you again next week, and I hope you have a good and safe weekend further. Bye.